Hi, in this video we take our Arduino Oscilloscope and we add a second channel so you can measure two things at once. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to do this in two parts. We'll walk through the Arduino code and then we'll walk through changes to the spreadsheet. Let's start with the Arduino code. I'm assuming that you already have had a chance to see the other videos where we've done the basic code, hooked it up to Excel. If not, I highly recommend at some point you go back through to those, and that might fill in some gaps for you, but I'm not going to cover here. Basically, the code is similar to what we had when we had the data streamer version of the Arduino Oscilloscope code going. Nothing's really changed at the top. We're still capturing 400 samples. We've got an ability to configure the ADC SRA register for faster or slower sampling time. Where the main changes are in the sampling point. Previously we would just capture every single sample from channel 1, which is all we had, was from pin A0 on the Arduino. Now we are going to capture every second sample based on what's coming in on pin A1, which will be our channel 2. Then in the output stage we still basically capture sample time and then a sensor value, but when we're doing channel 1 we won't bother do a new line, we'll just put a comma. And when we do channel 2 we will do a new line, so the net result will be that we'll get an output that's time, voltage for channel 1, time, voltage for channel 2, and then a new line, and repeat and repeat and repeat until we've got 200 captured for both channels. Now that we're done with the Arduino code, we'll move on to Excel. The first thing I'm going to do is take a copy of the worksheet that was for the one channel version of data streaming, and I'm going to rename it to be channel 2 dstream. And because we're doing a recording here, I'm going to hide the other one so I don't accidentally click on the wrong sheet while we're working. Next thing we want to do is adjust some settings in the data streamer setup, because we're now only going to be bringing through 200 rows. And what we might do is do a quick connect and test to make sure that everything is still working. Cool, so we've got samples coming through and there is 200. That's great. Now on our oscilloscope we're getting some funny information here, and I think that's because last time I had the word start appearing in this column B here, which is no longer the case. So what we're going to do is make sure that start time lines up with the correct place and voltage lines up with the correct place in the data in worksheet. There's our voltage. And we're probably going to have to fill this down. Doesn't look like the formulas took. And the other thing we'll notice down here is we're getting a lot of zeros, and that's because we're no longer getting 400 rows, we're only getting 200. So we'll go find our way to where we don't have any data, and we'll get rid of that. Looks like we've got some information coming through now, so that's good. We just gave our circuit a measuring a little bit of a poke, and now we might have a much more interesting waveform to look at. There we go. Cool. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just check that, because we deleted some rows there, that the chart is really grabbing the full range, and it looks like no, it's not. So I'm going to drag these down to line up with row 200. And we've got channel 1 basically working. To do channel 2, what we're going to do is basically make a copy of all the columns. So I'm going to unhide the ones we hid previously, and basically we're going to repeat all of this information again. So what we can do is insert some columns here, give us some room, and basically copy the whole lot across, except that this is the start time for 2, this is voltage for channel 2, end time for channel 2, rising through threshold for channel 2, etc., etc. And the voltage in and the start time are going to come from a different part of the data in. So we're going to get from this column for time and for this column for voltage. And the other thing we're going to do is hook the chart up so that it's bringing in the information from the second lot of voltage and time. So we do that in chart, select data, and we add another range, and this one we'll call voltage 2. And we'll make sure that the X values are dragging in from the start or from the time. And we make sure that the Y values are coming from the correct voltage area, which is here, like so. And if we've done everything right, then we get 2 lines on the chart. So that looks positive. The next step will be to, well, we've basically got our oscilloscope going, but the next step will be nice to get all of these values for a channel 2 as well, so that's what we're going to do next. The first thing we'll do is just make a copy of them, and then we can tidy each one up one by one. Right, so max voltage is coming from the M column here, and it's the max of all of these. Min is identical, but with minimum instead. Peak to peak sorts itself out, that's great. Average is going to be what we pull from here. Threshold comes from average, so there's no issue there. To fix up period, we need to make sure that all of our formulas are right leading up to that in the columns N through Q. So let's do that. Here we want to be pulling from the other threshold. Formula for last should be using rising through threshold from here. And the start time should be the channel 2 start time. Period, we need to be using the correct rising through threshold for channel 2. For period down here, we use the same average. And then for this period, rather than taking it from this one here, we take it from this one here. And and then the frequency takes care of itself. Then we can just color code these to make it a little bit obvious which channel is which. That gives us a 2-channel oscilloscope that we could use to measure the input and output of a transistor. For example, the one we used in the RC phase shift oscillator circuit in the previous video. Thanks for watching.